great that we can all come together for a common cause. We all are here to learn something. So let's go to our Heavenly Father. Father, which art in heaven, we thank you for the blessings that you give us. We know, Father, that you're great, supreme being. We recognize your greatness, and we thank you, Father, that you give us the opportunity to come before you with petitions. We thank you, Father, for the freedom that we have, that you've blessed our country with. We thank you, Father, for the freedom to worship, the freedom to come together here and to assemble, and the freedom to choose our leaders. We pray that you will help us as we go through our election process so that we will have honest voting registration, honest fair election, honest leaders who look to you for guidance as they lead our nation back to the values it was founded upon. Today we've come together here to hear Senator Santorum and consider what he has to say. Please help us to listen with an open mind and help us each to use wise discernment when it's time to make our selections. We ask these many things, Father, in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Remain standing for the pledge. If you sat down, you needed your exercise again. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mark, did you want to come up and honor veterans? And once again, if you did not hear, please turn off your cell phone or put it in vibrate mode. I know someone didn't hear.
You want this corner here? Please.
We'd like for all the veterans and active military, please stand up, please.
Okay, and with that, we have just a few housekeeping things before we begin. My name is Carolyn Fairchild, and I am currently serving as Vice Chair of the Teller County Republicans. And I am just blown away of the number of people here. I know, had someone from the Springs say, I don't know about that venue. We don't want it to look empty. And I said to her today, never doubt Teller County! As this event was being put together, I just thought it would be only fair that I check and see if maybe the White House would like to be represented. And so I checked, and the schedule was just too busy for President Obama, and he couldn't be here. I don't know what his schedule was today, but many days it's like a briefing in the afternoon, and that's all. If you go to whitehouse.gov, that's all you find. So anyway, he said he was too busy and he couldn't come, and he said to send his regards. And so I thought, I don't need to do that. I have heard him speak so many times, I can give his speech. So I just thought, without a teleprompter, you would like to hear his speech. Take credit for the idea. That was in an email, and I just elaborated on it. So, just very, very quickly, back at the back table, the Teller County Republicans We have half-page sheets of upcoming agendas, things, you can tell it's 2012 and things are starting to fly. Tomorrow night we have Robert Blaha, who is a candidate for Congressional District 5 at the headquarters. If you don't know where our headquarters is, it's up in the, in where City Market is, up above the old Ben Franklin store, so get up there. But he's going to be there from 7 to 8:30. All this stuff is back there, so I'm going to go very, very quickly. We have Congressman Lamborn coming Saturday from 1 to 4 as a guest host, so you can drop in and speak with him. Of course, we have our all-important caucuses next Tuesday night. How many are you pre-registered? Awesome. Those of you who aren't, if you're a registered Republican and you live in Teller County, you can go to a website. It's back. You can find it back there at the table and pre-register. Pre-registration is not necessary. You can show up and register on the spot. Pre-registration just allows you to pass through credentialing quicker. Keep in mind that here in Teller County, we honor a fair election, and so when you come to the caucus, you will be asked to show photo ID. Keep that in mind. We do hope everyone comes to the caucus. Okay? Thank you.
Welcome to Teller County. Thank you for coming out. A few quick announcements before we get what you guys came here to see. We want to thank the GOP. My name is Mark Knight. I'm the chairman for the Teller Tea Party Patriots. We want to welcome you out there. I want to explain something real quick up here. Is we've extended an offer to all 4 candidates. This is not an endorsement by the Tea Party. This is an opportunity for you guys to come meet the candidate here today and make your decision there. We do have offers extended to the other ones, and we'll let you know email if those other individuals take us up on it. So that's where the Tea Party stands. No endorsements at this time. Okay. I want to thank the Woodland Park Police Department for coming here and helping us out with this thing. Okay, as far as announcements, real quick, we have a Pints and Patriots, which is down here at the Historic, and we get together as community members and discuss politics. Youth gives us 10% discounts on things. So come join us. It's every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month, except this Tuesday. The caucus is on the 7th, so we're going to be meeting on February 6th. Come and meet us. It's just casual, sit down, drink, eat, and talk politics. So that's one thing. Now, the Tea Party is also, we're starting a food storage workshop. And Marty Wilkinson is going to be the instructor. Great guy, who knows a lot about this. That's going to be February 11th, Saturday, from 10 to 2. Come out and do that. At this time, people, everyone, at the library, February 11th, 10 to 2.
Mark,
Yeah.
what time's your Pints and Patriots meeting?
That would be 6:30 in the evening. Thanks. We got a hectic going up here. Okay, I'd like to introduce to you Senator Rick Santorum.
Well, you know how to make a guy feel welcome. Thank you so much. It is great to be here on a typical beautiful day in February here in Teller County. And it's absolutely beautiful here. It's obviously a beautiful place, and you have made it feel a lot more beautiful. Wow, what a crowd! This is unbelievable. Thank you all the folks who put this together. Is Colorado ready to be heard on Tuesday? You know, this is an important state. It's an important state. Obviously, you're coming up here with a caucus on Tuesday, and it's an important state in the general election. This is one of the handful of swing states that decide elections. And so when you speak in a caucus, you speak loudly, because you're one of those states that has to be reckoned with if we're going to win the presidency back from the dark side, from the left of America. And I am so excited to see that the Tea Party Patriot movement is still alive and well here in Colorado. Let me just first thank you. I want to thank you for what you have done, not just in the last election with electing conservatives from coast to coast, but I want to thank you for what you've done for reminding us as conservatives and the Republican Party what the real basis of this party is. And this movement has done more to give me confidence in the future of our country, that there are, in fact, that silent majority out there who's not so silent anymore, that understands what's at stake. They understand that this is not just another election. They understand that our country is on the precipice of a radical change that will, in fact, leave the world a darker place. If we do not stand up, it's not just a matter of the United States of America being a fundamentally different country. It's the matter of the world losing its beacon, losing its North Star. And so what you have done over these past 3 years in reminding us of the incredible importance of this document, the Constitution of the United States, and one of the things I love about the Tea Party is you're not just a political organization that organizes and gets involved in campaigns, but you're a movement that tries to do something which is vitally important in our country today. Because our educational systems and our popular culture and our elite media has let us down. They have stopped teaching us who we are. They have, I don't know if a few of you are old enough to remember the Soviet Union, just a few. But I remember growing up in the 60s and 70s and remembering and studying the Soviet Union and learning about how during the reigns of different leaders of the Soviet Union, when someone would come in power, they would rewrite the history books. They would go back and people would either come out of favor or out of favor. Lenin would be in favor or out of favor, or Trotsky would be in and out of favor, or Stalin would be in and out of favor. It wasn't what the truth was. It's what the government wanted to tell you about who you were as a people. Well, we have a government, we have a society now that's trying to rewrite history of America. They're trying to minimize and eliminate the founding documents of our country. And the Tea Party movement provides a very important antidote to that. To go out and educate. That's what I love about this movement. I've spoken at many Tea Party events. And they're not just political rallies, but they're educational opportunities. They bring in speakers and try to remind Americans about what this document's all about. But the Tea Party also understands that there isn't a founding document of our country. It's not just the Constitution, but there's an equally important document. The Constitution is the how of America. It is the operator's manual, but it is not the why of America. It is not who we are. And that document is the one that is really the focal point of the left, the one that they are trying to expunge from history. The progressive movement and liberal judges don't refer to it, don't talk about it, want to ignore it. It's just a very nice and quaint document at a time that was put out there, but it has no legal footing and foundation. And that, of course, is the Declaration of Independence. But that document, ladies and gentlemen, is equally important and might even say more important. Because it is the very foundation of what makes America an exceptional country. And it is the words in the Declaration. It is the heart of American exceptionalism. And those words are, we hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are different than any other country in the history of the world. And it's not necessarily because of our Constitution. Our Constitution is a great document. It provides protections of freedoms, fundamental freedoms. It's important that we live by this document, this operator's manual for America. But the important thing to understand is this document has to be read in context with the Declaration. When Adams left the Constitutional Convention, he said this document, the Constitution, was made for a moral and religious people and is wholly inadequate for the governance of any other. Why? Because this document does grant radical freedom. Radical freedom. Documents like this have been crafted in other countries. France, for example. Revolutionary France had a constitution not dissimilar to the American Constitution. But that revolution was based on a very different premise. Ours was based on God-given rights. God-given rights, rights that government cannot give you and cannot take away from you, but rights that are unalienable. The French Constitution was not based upon that during the French Revolution. It was based on 3 words: liberty, fraternity, and equality. All very nice words, but fraternity is not paternity. Brotherhood is not a source of rights. And so in the French Revolution, a secular, anti-clerical, anti-God revolution, those who wielded the power, this radical freedom given to them in this Constitution, used it to construct the guillotine, used it to oppress. Why? Because there were no rights that the government had to respect, because there were no unalienable rights. So when you talk about the Constitution and revere it, understand it is a dangerous document, not a sacred one, without God-given rights as the foundation of our country. So when you see, as you will hear, as you've been hearing from our government and from President Obama, that you have rights to all these things. You have the right to health care. We hear this from the left. You have the right to health care. We had folks who, because they're concerned about their health insurance and they're concerned about their job, or they're concerned about the poor or the uninsured, embrace this. Well, yes, shouldn't we have the government make sure that everybody has access to health care? Well, there was one particular group that embraced that over my objections. And that was the Catholic Bishops' Conference. They went out and fundamentally embraced Obamacare. Said, yes, we're going to provide health care to everybody. And there were many of us, a Catholic myself, who said, be careful. Be careful who you're falling into bed with. Because if government can give you a right, not only can they take it away, but they can tell you how to exercise what they gave you. They can tell you how to run your life, because now you owe them and you are dependent upon them. So any of you who were at Mass last weekend, as a Catholic, you got a letter read to you by the same bishops who embraced Obamacare. Now, are saying this is an assault on who we are. Surprise, surprise. Yes, the government came out and said to all Catholic institutions that we are going to make you do things that are against the core teachings of your church. Why? Because we own you.
Yeah.
And you will pay tribute to the government that gives you. We've given you this. Don't complain if we tell you how you're going to use what we've given you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not America. This is not the country that transformed the world. This is an action of a government that people left to come to this country to avoid. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important election of your lifetime. This is election, yes, it's about an economy that's in peril, but why is it in peril? Oh, there's lots of reasons. But one is because the government has grown so big, so onerous, so regulatory, so prescriptive, so oppressive, that Americans who are not used to having that yoke weigh heavily upon them, simply are not reacting well to being governed. And as a result, our economy is not like the rest of Europe, where they're used to it. They're used to having that yoke and being pulled around. I know for a fact, my grandfather came to this country leaving Mussolini's Italy in 1925 and brought my dad along 5 years later, legally. And they came here because they didn't want a country that would tell them what to do and how to do it. They came here because they wanted to be free. They wanted a country that believed in them. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are reaching a point where we have a government that is not dissimilar to the government that we had a revolution against. That is telling us how to live our lives, what to do and how to do it. And it's not just destroying our economy, it's robbing us of our fundamental freedom. It's a much bigger election. It goes down to this fundamental precept as what America is all about. Well, you here have a special obligation. You have an obligation as a swing state. You have an obligation as an early primary state, an early caucus state, to speak out and put up someone that you believe can best not just win this election, but win this election and do what is necessary to rally the American public, to begin to believe in ourselves again, to believe in what made this country great. Ronald Reagan said in his farewell address to the American people, the last words he said as President of the United States, that his greatest concern about the future of our country was Americans not learning who and what America is. That's why the Tea Party is so important. And that's why you here in this room are so important in this election. You have some choices to make. There's some good people running for office on the Republican side, people who are friends of mine. But there are clear choices here. There are choices as who the best person is to go up and make the case to the American public about the fundamental issues at stake in this election. The Tea Party movement started because of this overreach of government. It shook people at their core and got them off their couches, out of your comfortable workspace, and brought them out into the streets. What were those issues? Well, first, the bailout of Wall Street. Right? We were going to come and spend almost $1 trillion to bail out people who made billions, all on the backs of people who were unsuspecting homeowners and mortgagers. Did they lose money? No, they didn't. The government was there to pick up the pieces because they were, quote, too big to fail. And who went along with that? Republicans and Democrats alike went along with it. It was a panic time. And people were saying, oh, well, you have to do it. The world's going to end. And those who did not have strong convictions about the proper role of government in the private sector, like a well-oiled weather vane, swung in the direction of big government and takeover. And then we elected Barack Obama, and right away the stimulus, the portcullis package, and cap and trade legislation, and Obamacare legislation. And eventually enough people in this country rallied together and said, enough! You saw the imminent danger. You saw the imminent danger of government taking over a sector of the economy and cap and trade that would regulate your energy consumption. Not just manufacturers, but your energy consumption. You look at civilizations, you look at countries, and you look at the wealth that countries have, and you look at their energy consumption. They are directly tied. The higher the energy consumption, the higher the standard of living. What Barack Obama and John McCain and others wanted to put in place was a cap and trade program that would limit your energy consumption, would reduce the amount of energy and carbon that was going to be burned because of the holy grail of man-made global warming. And there were folks who bought into this, bought into the hoax, and bought into the remedy to the hoax. And then finally there was Obamacare. And there were people in our party. Oh, they opposed it then. But there were people in our party who had flirted with Obamacare, and in fact provided the basis for Obamacare. So let's just look at the issues and look at the three candidates who have won presidential primaries. Look at the issue of the Wall Street bailouts. There was one candidate of the three who opposed the Wall Street bailout, who said that this was, even if it was the right medicine to avert a financial disaster, it was the wrong medicine. Why? Because it introduced a toxin into the body that will never go away. And that's the toxin of government coming in to take over and bail out sectors of the economy and infuse itself into the markets like we have never have in the history of this country. And it was on principle the wrong thing to do. And that's why it needed to be opposed. Let the markets work. We have two candidates, one who calls himself the businessman, one who says, I've been out there in the private sector and I'm not someone who's an insider in Washington. And what position did this outsider take? He took the insider position. He took the big government position. When things got tough, he jumped on board big government and didn't believe in the private sector he so boasts about. And how about the other, the experienced politician who can shake up Washington? He jumped on board too. He said he didn't like it, but he had no choice. You always have a choice. cap and trade. We had a governor of Massachusetts, who'll go nameless, who proudly crowed when he became governor, who proudly signed a piece of regulation that put a cap on carbon, on CO2 emissions, proudly proclaimed that Massachusetts was the first state in the country to impose caps on CO2 to help prevent man-made global warming. Oh, now he says he's against cap and trade. That well-oiled weather vane. But when global warming was all the rage, he was all in for global warming. And then we have the other candidate who sat on a couch. Careful who you sit next to. And did so proudly, talking about man-made global warming. In fact, was for, and up until just a year or so ago, was for cap and trade. Oh, with some incentives for businesses to lower the cost. For cap and trade. For government coming in and taking over the manufacturing energy sector of the economy and regulating your energy consumption. You think government has you when they control your health care? How about if they control when you turn your lights on or how high you turn your heat up? And then we have health care, Obamacare. Oh, I'm against Obamacare. I'm going to repeal Obamacare. It's the worst thing that ever happened. I pledge on day one. You hear all these protestations. But let's look at the record. Newt Gingrich, for 20 years, supported the core of Obamacare. For 20 years, supported exactly what the attorneys generals of this country are suing at the United States Supreme Court as an unconstitutional power grab. He supported the federal government's ability to make each and every one of you, as a condition of breathing in America, buy health insurance. Now he says he wants to repeal Obamacare. But is he going to get the chance? No. Is he going to get the chance in a race against President Obama? No. Who is going to say, well, you know, you criticize me, but look at what you were for. And worse yet, let's go to Governor Romney. Governor Romney makes a lot of noise about how he's going to be the toughest guy, he's going to grant waivers, he's going to do this, and he's going to everything to repeal Obamacare. Yet he stands in full support of what he did in Massachusetts called Romneycare. And says it's different.
Yeah.
And when I asked him at the last debate how it's different, he said, well, in my plan, it's a state plan, not a federal plan.
Okay.
Okay, that's different. He says, I don't cut Medicare. Well, the governor of Massachusetts can't cut Medicare. Medicare's a federal program. He said, I didn't increase taxes. Yes, he did. He increased taxes repeatedly. First, his program cost $8 billion more since Romneycare was put in place, and they've had to increase taxes every year to pay for that. So while he put it in place, of course, the program didn't start operating until he was out of office. And that's when the taxes went up. Secondly, he increased your taxes. You see, I happen to know because Pennsylvania played in this nefarious little game. It was called a provider tax. It was a little game that Massachusetts and Pennsylvania and New York played on Medicaid. They had this provider tax, which they would tax providers in order to show more Medicaid reimbursements. And they would amp up their Medicaid reimbursements through this tax, which they then rebated back to the people they taxed. But it showed more expenditures in Medicaid and gave them higher reimbursements from the federal government, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars to some of these states. Well, I was against it, even though my state was benefiting. And we eventually repealed it. Said you can't do this anymore. One of the reasons for Romney Care that he won't tell you is because he wanted to keep the extra money. And so they had to put in a program to expand Medicaid to keep the money. And that's exactly what Romney Care does. It's a huge expansion of Medicaid. Over half the people that have come on the insurance rolls have come through government programs and government subsidies through Medicaid. What he also doesn't tell you is that Massachusetts has the highest health care cost of any state in the country now. 27% above average. What he also doesn't tell you is that while there are 94% of the people who are insured in Massachusetts, there were 92% before Romney Care. $8 billion to insure 2% more. And guess what? The costs have driven up so much. Why? Well, a couple of factors. Number one, the people who now have free health insurance are using it a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's driving up cost. Insurance, emergency room visits, which were supposed to go down if you have insurance, went up. Something called a free rider. What's a free rider? This is very important to understand because it is the core of one of the big problems in Obamacare. Governor Romney's plan said everybody has to buy insurance, and if you don't, you pay a fine. So when Governor Romney says, well, there were 92% of the people in Massachusetts were covered, and they had nothing changed for them. You'll hear him say that over and over. That is simply not the case. What changed for them was, number one, if they dropped their insurance, they were fined. Number two, there were only 4 categories of insurance that their plan had to fit into. And if it didn't, they had to change their plans, which is what's going on with Obamacare right now. Obamacare doesn't have 4 categories of insurance. Romney Care had 4: gold, silver, bronze, and young adult. Obamacare has 5: platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and young adults. Gee, I wonder where they got that from. Well, those folks who are insured now, you're mandated to be insured, and if you don't, you pay a fine. Here's the problem. They also put in this thing that everybody thinks was a great idea. That you can't eliminate somebody, you can't deny people insurance because of a pre-existing condition. Everybody says, oh, you got to keep that. You can't be discriminated against people who have pre-existing conditions. I have family members who have pre-existing conditions, and I'm not for pre-existing condition clauses. Why? Well, think about it. In Massachusetts, you have a fine if you don't buy insurance. The fine's about $700. What's the cost of insurance? Let me assure you, it isn't $700. So what's happening? What people are doing is that young people, healthy people, folks you want in the insurance pool, they're dropping their insurance. They're paying the fine. And if they ever get sick, what do? Sign up for insurance. And they have to be taken. And then what happens when they're not sick anymore? They drop their insurance and pay the fine. And what happens to the cost of health insurance? There's a reason for pre-existing condition clauses. You want people to get insurance. And if they don't, then they shouldn't be free riding on everybody else. That's exactly what's going to happen with Obamacare. The point I'm trying to make is, Barack Obama, in a debate or in this election, is going to destroy Mitt Romney on the issue of health care. He will say, you're questioning me? I used your plan. The Attorney General of Florida just went out the other day, a couple of days ago in Florida, and said that she's going to be appointed to a task force that Governor Romney's going to put together. You know what the object of that task force is, according to the Attorney General of Florida? Is to go out and sell to appeal Obamacare, but to sell Romney Care to the other 49 states. Governor Romney's for Romney Care. He is for government-mandated health insurance, just not at the federal level, but at the state level. Does that make a big difference to any of you here? Who cares? Now, it's unconstitutional on the federal level, I'll agree with that. But top down is top down and it's wrong. Here's my point, folks. The three issues I just mentioned are three issues that define the problems that we have in America today. That define whether you believe in limited government, limited interaction of the federal government into the private sector, and solving our problems in America from the bottom up, believing in free markets and free people. Or do you believe in government mandating and controlling things from the top down? If we nominate Gingrich or Romney, we give away the three signature issues that differentiate ourselves from what's going on in this country with the progressives. Why would we do that? Why would you do that? Why would the people here in Colorado give that away? Well, Governor Romney says, look, I should be the nominee because I've raised the most money and I have the best organization. You think he's going to have more money than Barack Obama in the fall? Think he's going to have a better organization? He will give away everything that you stand for. The reason for the Tea Party was because of those issues in government control and an abdication of constitutional principles, and we will have nominees, either of them, who will get destroyed in their attempt to differentiate themselves from this president. People of Colorado have a big job. You've got to reset this race. We cannot afford to have candidates up there who are going to be outspent. I hear this all the time, outspent, outmaneuvered, and absolutely obliterated on the major issues of the day. I hear this all the time, well, Rick, we like you, but you can't win. Anybody know who had the highest favorability ratings in the state of Florida yesterday on election day? Even though I'm not as well known as across the country, according to Gallup and the other national surveys, who has the highest favorability ratings in the country of the Republican nominees? I do. So why am I not winning? Why am I not winning? Well, let me just posit this to you. Because you watch too much cable television. And you hear all of these pundits saying, oh, he can't win. You hear all these people say, oh, well, you know, he's too conservative, or he's too this, or he's too that. He's a good guy, we like him, but, you know, he just can't win. Back in 1980, people of Colorado, the people of this country, had a choice to make. We were going through an economic malaise thanks to Jimmy Carter that was similar to what we're going through now, only not nearly as bad. The consequences for our country were not nearly as critical as they are today. And yet, the race was about someone who could win versus this real conservative guy who was dangerous. He couldn't attract moderates. He was too conservative, too hard line. He would be another Barry Goldwater, and we'd lose in a landslide. Everybody now, when you say the name Ronald Reagan in a conservative gathering, it's like the movie Blazing Saddles. Anybody see the movie Blazing Saddles? Remember when they used to say the name Randolph Scott? Remember that? There would be a chorus, Randolph Scott. Right? This great figure in movie westerns. Well, that's what it is in America today when you say Ronald Reagan. Oh, Ronald Reagan. But back in 1980, Ronald Reagan wasn't Randolph Scott. He was Ronald Reagan. He wasn't the great figure in American history they know today. He was a hardline conservative who couldn't win, who everybody made fun of. Voodoo economics. That wasn't a Democratic term, that was George Bush criticizing Ronald Reagan. The media made fun of him. He's just an actor. He couldn't win. But the people of Colorado and the people of America saw somebody who stood up and believed what he said, who had strong core convictions. You knew he wasn't going to waver. You knew he was going to go and do what he thought was the best for the country at a time when the country needed somebody who was going to be honest, who was going to be authentic, who was going to try to bring us together at a difficult time. And they didn't jump for who could win. They jumped for who needed to win. I dare say if CNN and Fox and MSNBC was around in 1980, we would have never had Ronald Reagan. Well, your job is harder, but it is no less important. I need your help. I have no doubt we will win this race. I'm in this race to the very end. I'm going to stay. But you know, we could use a little help here early on. A little boost from Colorado would mean a lot. And you have an opportunity in this caucus to give us a boost. You have an opportunity to come out of here. If you go out and say, I like Rick and I'm going to help him, and you go out and vote for me at the caucus, that isn't enough. Our founders, when they created this great document, Declaration of Independence, at the end of that document, wrote these very famous words, that they would dedicate their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for this country that they had just created. They knew, and they wrote about it, that in a sense the easy part was writing this declaration, was acknowledging the God-given rights and the freedoms that come with it. They knew the hard part was fighting for that freedom. They knew even the harder part was maintaining that freedom over the test of time. Every great civilization that rises, every great civilization that transforms the world, tires, gets away from the flame that burned so brightly that created the greatness. And generations forget that to maintain the integrity of that civilization, they have to burn just as brightly. But there is a siren song, as there always is, that you don't need to make the sacrifices. You don't need to suffer the consequences that freedom, it's not just opportunities that freedom gives you, but it's the falls that come from having the freedom to do. And that there are many who are convinced by that siren song to give up some of that freedom in exchange for some security of the federal government that would give it. It is a false choice, but it is one that as we get away from that burning fire that many make, it is up to every generation to be the keeper of the flame. And not just keep that flame alit, but to keep that flame burning brighter, brighter, and brighter in every generation. That is your job. It is our watch. This is the moment in American history that I believe is just as important as any in the history of our country. The last election of this consequence, in my opinion, was the election of 1860. In that election, we made a change of America. Prior to the 1860, most people referred to the United States of America as these United States. These, plural, states. And after that conflagration It became the United States. One country, one nation. This is an election about not whether we are one nation or one group or a group of states. This is an election about who we are and what you will pass off to the next generation. The question is, are you willing to do what our founders were willing to do? Were you willing to step forward and pledge your lives, your fortune, and your honor? You know, none of you are really going to be called to do that. No one's going to have to risk their life to win this election. Some of you hopefully will risk a little fortune. RickSantorum.com, by the way, is the website. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, this is about honor. It's about honor. Not a term you hear much anymore, do you? You hear the term honor used? People... Touche. Sadly, you don't hear it in politics, and you don't hear it in business. You don't hear it in personal life. Honor. A sense of integrity and pride in what you believe in and your willingness to hold to those high standards. That's your objective over the next week. Your honor is on the line here in America, because you will dishonor America if we lose this election. And you will be dishonored because you didn't do everything you could do to preserve the freedoms that millions fought and died for. No one's asking you to put on a uniform. No one's asking you to carry a gun. No one's asking you to risk your life. Yet how many will walk out this door and say, boy, wasn't that nice? I'll go vote for him on Tuesday. It's not enough. We need an energy and enthusiasm that will shake this state and will shake this country. The Tea Party did it. You did it 2 years ago. You had the energy and enthusiasm. But last night, when the votes were counted in Florida, fewer people voted in the Florida primaries than did 4 years ago. By far. Is the energy still there in this movement? Do you understand what's at stake? It's not just your country, it's your honor. Please go out and do the honorable thing and fight for the future of your country. Thank you. I cannot do a Tea Party meeting without taking questions. So that is an essential part of any Tea Party meeting. So I want to take a few questions, and I want to leave some time to meet and greet people and have an opportunity to say hi to folks. So we'll do a little of both. How much time do we have? What do we got? We got 15 minutes. Okay, we'll do 15 minutes of questions and 15 minutes of shaking hands and saying hi to folks. And Greg has the microphone there, so don't raise your hand at me, get his attention.
Yes. It's loud. Can you speak on the dangers of state-run healthcare exchanges? We in Colorado had that passed, and we're trying to fight against it by Marshall Hoover.
what we need in the healthcare system is not state-run organizations to create a marketplace. What we need is a marketplace to create a marketplace, right? You think about health insurance. Health insurance doesn't work for one fundamental reason. It's not insurance. Let's take something that everybody's familiar with, auto insurance. How many of you turn in your gas bills to your fill-ups at the gas station to your insurance companies? How many turns in your oil changes, new tires? Okay, how many of you, if you had a $500 deductible policy, would turn in a $700 collision repair? How many would turn in a $700 collision if you had a $500 deductible policy? Okay, so far, well, one person would, okay? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you turn it in? 99% of you said no. Because your rates would go way up. Yet, how many people turn in a $25 doctor bill? A $40 lab bill? You turn in every single health claim. And then you say, hey, why are my insurance rates going up? Because your insurance company is an insurance company. You're paying your insurance company to pay your bills. How stupid is this? Right? Insurance is for catastrophic, uncertain events, not oil changes. And so, or runny noses, or sore throats. So, we have a system that's fundamentally flawed. Then we have a system that has nothing to do with economic reality. Let's take an example. How many of you have received a bill that says, this is not a bill? Raise your hand. Name any other place in the economy of our country where you get bills that say, this is not a bill. And then name another thing where the bill comes in, this is not a bill, sorry, the non-bill comes in, and it says, you just went to the hospital, and you had a procedure done that cost $15,000, right? Wow, that's a lot of money. But what does the insurance company then put right underneath the $15,000? Non-allowed amount. $12,000. I'm not exaggerating. Am I exaggerating? No. And then insure what we'll pay, and then the percentage of that you'll pay, which is usually $50, $100, $200. Now, how many of you would go to a store and buy, well, let's say a piece of furniture, and they would hand you a bill when you want to buy that furniture that said, this is not a bill. And say this couch costs $10,000, but we're going to discount it by 8. Your insurance is going to pick up. How many people would, you'd think this guy's crazy? You'd say, well, he's obviously ripping me off. This can't cost that much. What kind of markup do we have? What kind of phony economy is this? That's exactly what we have, a phony economy in healthcare. That's why Obamacare, Romneycare, all these cares don't work. They don't care. Right? The name of my plan is You Care. Right? Because we will put not Obama in charge, not Romney in charge. We want to put you in charge. And how do we do that? I'm the only person in this race who actually has had a health care plan that I've advocated for 20 years. Anybody ever hear of health savings accounts? Anybody want to guess who was the first author of a health savings account bill? See, I haven't just been a well-oiled weather vane. 20 years ago, I introduced something called medical savings accounts back then. They've now changed it to health savings accounts. And it was the concept of high deductible insurance, a savings account to help pay for that insurance, that you had money in there tax-free. And then catastrophic insurance when in fact you had an insurable event to cover when you couldn't afford it. That's how insurance works. It puts you on the front lines. It creates doctor-patient relationships. Imagine going in to a doctor's office and actually handing them cash for what the bill you're consuming. How much less? How much would you ask how much it cost? Right now, I guarantee you, anybody tell me how much standard blood work costs if you go into your physical? You have no idea. Oh, you can tell me, you can go throw a guess out, I don't believe you. Unless you're paying the bill, you have no idea. Right? Well, now you're going to have an idea why, because you're paying the bill. And you're going to ask your doctor, oh, by the way, how much does this cost? Well, whoa, why are you sending it to that guy? I understand that there's another lab that does it for less. Are you getting a kickback or something? I mean, what's going on here? Right? You never ask that question now. You never have a conversation with your healthcare provider about cost. And then we wonder why it costs so much. Folks, what do we believe in? We believe in a country. It's the greatest country in the history of the world because we believed in limited government. We believed in free people, free markets. We believed in families, and churches, and communities. Building strong nuclear organizations.
Could we have time for another question?
Next question. I'm coachable.
Rick, we have cancer growing in Washington. If we can help get you elected, what, as president, can and will you do to reduce the size and scope of our government?
Thank you. We talk about short-term and long-term. First, what I pledged is that every year in the 4 years that I'm president, the first 4 years that I'm president, I will spend less money the next year than I did the year before. So when people say, oh, you're going to cut spending, everybody says, oh yeah, we know that game. You're going to cut the rate of growth in spending and say you cut spending. We are going to spend less money at the federal level next year than we did this year, less than the following year than we did the year before. We are going to shrink the size of the federal government, number one. Number two, we are going to reform entitlement programs and get rid of some entitlement programs. Okay? You know, all these candidates run around saying, oh, they're going to do all this in government and you know, supporting the Paul Ryan plan. And I like the Paul Ryan plan. I was the first person to endorse the Ryan plan. I didn't call it right-wing social engineering, and I didn't wait 6 months to endorse it. I endorsed it on day one. Why? Well, because a lot of things that were in the Ryan plan are things I advocated. My only concern with the Ryan plan was the timing of the plan and the exclusion of Social Security from the plan. I think that is just intellectually dishonest. I'm not saying Paul Ryan's intellectually dishonest. Paul Ryan put together a plan that could get everybody to sign on to it. But he didn't put the plan, I guarantee you, didn't put the plan that he thought was necessary to get the job done. Because we can't wait 10 years to address Medicare and Social Security. You got to do something now. And you have 72 means-tested entitlement programs. 72. We need to take those, I think it's something like 48 of them are education and training programs. Spending $18 billion a year. Just those education and training programs. We need to take all those programs. We need to take everything from food stamps to Medicaid, to housing programs, to school lunch programs. We need to take those programs, we need to cut them 10%, block grant them, send them back to the states, put a work requirement in order to receive some of these benefits. Put a time limit on these benefits unless you're disabled for the time limit. And say to the states, you take this money, here are the parameters, and you design the program that works best for your state. We're going to give you the flexibility to do this. We did this. I did this. I was the author of the welfare reform bill. I know Newt runs around taking credit for it. He was the Speaker of the House. He's like the CEO of the company taking credit for making the car. I was making the car. I was on the line, okay? I was on the line. I helped draft the original bill. I happened to be the ranking member of the committee that put the bill together. I chaired the committee to draft the Contract with America Welfare Reform Bill. Go back and look at the congressional record. I managed the bill on the floor of the Senate when I was in the Senate as a freshman senator, up against Ted Kennedy and Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and I won. And we changed that bill. And I did it because I had credibility. I had credibility when I stood up on the floor of the Senate and talked about the poor. Because I had represented a district which was one of the poorest in the country, in the state. It was a 71% Democratic district, and I won as a conservative. It was the old Steel Valley of Pittsburgh.
Time for third question.
One out of two isn't bad. And so, I had the credibility to go up and say, I had worked in poor districts. I had worked and seen the human potential and the destruction of human potential that dependency on government program does. And I also, by the way, when I became a United States Senator, hired 9 people off the welfare rolls to work in my office. And so when they said, you have no idea, I said, yes, I do have an idea. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to running an election and having not just the issues in line, but having the character and the quality of the individual who can go out and make the case to the American public as to what we need to do because you've done it yourself. Go ahead.
Last question.
Okay. In the last week, the Federal Reserve Commissioner has come out and publicly stated that they are going to leave interest rates low until 2014. I'd like to know what your administration's viewpoint is on this economic regulation and how you would plan to interact with the Federal Reserve Commission.
It's pretty clear to me the Federal Reserve is using their power right now to focus on one of the 2 missions they have. The Federal Reserve serves 2 masters: sound money and unemployment. That is the problem. It should not serve, and its mission should not be to lower the unemployment rate. The reason the left put in the second mission is because they knew that their liberal policies would have the impact of driving up unemployment rates. And so they said, well, you know, we need somebody to help us out so we can mask the effect of big government, bad fiscal policy and bad regulatory policy. And so they gave the Fed the ability to do that. My pledge is that I will work to remove that second mission and put the Fed back to an agency that focuses on one thing, and that's the sound money of the United States of America. Well, thank you for that question. The question was, how is my daughter Bella? And let me just say that you know, we jumped off the campaign trail. I got to tell you how truly blessed I felt, because I had not been home with my family at our house since Christmas. I had seen that they had come out on the trail with me a couple of times, but I had not been home very much. And thanks to the media, I was pestered into going home and getting my income tax returns. And I don't have an accountant. I actually do my own taxes. Thus the reason for a simpler, flatter tax. And so I was home on a Friday evening. I was going to spend Saturday and then fly back to Florida on Saturday night. And I just happened to get home at a time when my daughter was getting very sick. She had been sort of, not feeling great, but Friday night was a bad night. Saturday was one of the worst days we've had. And eventually we did something we don't normally do. She hadn't been to the hospital in 3 years because we have all the equipment and everything to take care of her at home because we don't like taking her to the hospital. For a couple of reasons. Number one, there are germs there. Number two, well, she's a special needs little girl. And if you look at her diagnosis in the literature, when you look at trisomy 18, she has an extra 18th chromosome, which is similar to Down syndrome, which is trisomy 21, but much, much more severe of a condition. The words come up, incompatible with life. And so when you go to the hospital with a trisomy 18 child, people look at her differently. Like, why is she here? And why are we spending money on her? And I say that not now as presidential candidate Rick Santorum, but of course they wouldn't say that. But I say that for all of the families across America who do have that said to them. Why not have an abortion? Why do anything? Let this child die. Because she'll never be anything. She'll never walk. She'll never talk. So why bother? Well, what she can do is amazing. She can love. And I think Karen and I would both say we have incredibly special relationships with all of our children. But they are complex. I have a 14-year-old daughter. Do I need to say anything more? The amazing thing about Bella is there's no complexity at all. We have a relationship based on one thing. One thing. Unconditional love. Wow. So as you can see, she has her daddy wrapped around her finger. And we just feel so blessed to have her. We are excited that she recovered. She had a real tough time Saturday night. By Sunday, thanks to all of your prayers, she recovered, and she is going to be going home either in a few hours or tomorrow morning. They haven't quite figured it out, but she's well and she's on her way home. An opportunity to get a chance to meet and greet some folks. I'd love to take some more questions, and maybe I'm going to have some other events. I'll be up in the northern part of the state on what? Saturday? Saturday. So if you want to come up to Greeley, I'll be up there. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. The little boy saying, wait a minute, he's got a Packer jersey on. I don't know. No. We're talking about a Pittsburgh Steelers fan here. Question. The question is, what can we do to can we help make medicine cheaper? And I think I gave the answer to that. We can make medicine cheaper by using markets. That's how you make medicine cheaper, is that you have free people going out there and competing against each other. And competition drives up quality and drives down cost. That's what we believe. It's a basic understanding. So I understand the plight that people have, but here's what I would say about medicine and cheap. What would you rather have? A pill that costs you $300 that keeps you alive, or no pill? See, that's the problem with what we have, is that if what we have is we have very expensive drugs. Why? Because we have very expensive processes to bring a drug to market. We have a regulatory environment that is harder than any other country in the world to get a drug approved. And we have countries around the world who refuse to pay for those costs, for the research and development costs. It costs about $1 billion to bring a drug to market, sometimes more. Well, what do we say to the drug companies? Too bad. These kids need the drugs, or this person needs the drugs. You can't charge what it costs. How many drug companies are going to stay in business producing those drugs?
Are you going to allow the FDA for a bill of life? It's $900, and it's critical for a lot of people to have. And they're able, the drug companies are able to keep that price up because they can claim another usage when their time is up. So again, they extend the period for $900. I can afford my bill of life because it's $900 a month.
I would just say this, look, there are all sorts of games that drug companies play. But you have, I think it's a 17-year patent. You know how long it takes most drugs to come to market? 14 or 15 years. And so they have, and the patent starts at the time of the patent filing. So you have drug companies that put $1 billion in and have 3, 4, 5 years to recoup their profits. And so I just say, look, I understand when people are saying this is very expensive. But if we do what other countries around the world do, which is we're not going to pay for the cost of research. The only reason new drugs are developed is because Americans actually do pay for the cost of that research. And so when you say, oh, I'll go and get my drugs in Canada, that's great. Go get your drugs in Canada, and if everybody did that, you'd have no new drugs. You have that drug, and maybe you're alive today because people have a profit motive to make that drug. And if you take that away, there are many people out here today who 10 years from now are going to be alive because of some drug that was invented for the next 10 years. And if we say, oh, I'm sorry, drug companies, you're greedy, you're bad, we need you to have, no, you can't make a return on your money, then we will freeze innovation. If that's what you want, that's not how the market works. It's not what I believe in. And all I can say is we look at, and this is a very big danger in our country, we look at healthcare differently. They've conditioned you to look at it differently. People have no problem going out and buying an iPad for $900. But paying $900 for a drug, they have a problem that keeps you alive. Why? Because you have been conditioned to thinking that healthcare is something that you should get and not have to pay for. Drug companies, healthcare companies need to have a profit motive, because if they don't, then how are we going to regulate costs? We are going to ration care. And you may be someone who gets that care. But this little boy, because of his condition or because of his life expectancy, may not. Why? Because it's not cost effective. Folks, it's important. Right. 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 Well, this is the point that she's making. These drugs are really expensive, and therefore we should not let drug companies charge that. He's alive today because drug companies thought that they would make money in providing that care, and if the drug company didn't think they could make any money from providing that care, I hate to put it in these terms, but that drug wouldn't be here. And so let's just be honest with that. I hear these, and I sympathize with these very passionate cases. Look, I want your son and everybody to have the opportunity to stay alive on much needed drugs. But the bottom line is, we have to have companies who have the incentive to make those drugs. And if they don't have the incentive to make those drugs, your son won't be alive, and lots of other people in this country won't be alive. We either believe in markets or we don't. And in the case of high-cost drugs, yes, there are lots of things that can happen that hopefully will help people pay for those drugs. Insurance, as well as philanthropy, as well as many drug companies who do in fact discount drugs. Give drugs away for free in special cases. We don't need the government. We don't need the government to tell us how to do things. Okay, we've eaten up for questions. I'll say hello to a few folks, but I got to run off to my next event. Thank you all very much for coming. Please help